is true. That is true. Hestia did not translate exactly what she was going to do.
I told you guys she was going to kill a primogen and then burn the body so that there's no evidence.
You're right, except for all the people that saw us leave with the primogen.
Burn building, no evidence.
I would assume he would, when he said do what is needed, that he understood that fire wouldn't be involved, but okay.
Damien's a kid from the a whelp.
Problems are getting out of hand.
Damien, we're about to light the place up. It's gotten bad. You are living in the modern age where light the place up typically means upping firearms and spraying down someone that could easily be explained as the unfortunate stereotypical gang violence of Chicago. Arson, fire has always been a pall over the city. Like all major urban cities, Chicago is built upon the bones of the past. Like all major cities, it is built upon the wealth and lives of the dead. Unlike most cities, there are only 12 cities that have been completely and totally destroyed by fire multiple times during their existence. Most cities learn after the first one. Chicago, there have been 3 great fires. Only one that made national news, but 3 times the city has been destroyed, has been engulfed. The primary financial district, the outlying central business district have all been destroyed by fire 3 times. Fire is a big no-no. It's one of the reasons why Chicago, at least for many years, had one of the best fire departments in the contiguous United States, because unlike most other fire departments, it was supported by the city municipal body from the very outset, because there were so many clusterfucks that happened during each of the previous fires. For a very long time, they were ahead of the curve. A good portion of the actual municipal budget went towards fire prevention and training of fire prevention officers. Of course, like most things in Chicago, graft came into play. Favors began being bought, and before long, they were no longer the nation's finest fire department. Before long, they were just simply a fire department. And while many leaps and bounds have been made in Illinois and Chicago, specifically in keeping at the edge of just present enough with technology, social reform, business breaks, and tax cuts for the wealthy, fire isn't one of the things that they've been focused on. In fact, Chicago is so far ahead of the curve when it comes to policing that they quantify which violent crimes count enough to provide overtime in trying to solve them. Murders that happen indoors don't count against the city's murder total to better present a good image of police officers being able to do their job. Like when they self-report the murders that happen in Chicago, only the ones that happen outside go into those statistics.
Damn. There's still such a high fucking number.
Which is how a lot of the data is staggered so that it reflects only in certain areas of being piss poor and unwalkable, which is another bit of coded language that Chicago pioneered. When you hear a walkable location, it is code speak for, well, a non-urbanized area within the city.
I'm going to be real. As a forest-dwelling cave man, any urban area is unwalkable for me. I fucking hate cities.
Yeah, well, you know.
They're not so bad.
I mean, to each their own. Me? No, no.
You've been away from one for a while after living in one. When you return, it does feel like a lot. It feels like a lot of noise, a lot of smell, a lot of action, and it can be somewhat overwhelming. As somebody who was a native New Yorker at one point and then has moved away and gone back to visit, it's a lot.
Yeah, I had to drive through Louisville, and I did not enjoy driving through Louisville.
I
I
mean,
can't
driving
even
through
hazard.
Louisville is just a pain in the ass to begin with.
I mean, yes, but like I can't imagine walking through Louisville. There's just too many people.
You know, the funny thing is, I've always considered it very, very small the few times that we've passed through. It is quaint, homey,
Well,
very,
thank you.
very uncomfortable.
Oh. Well, I'm glad that we agree on that. I just see
go over to
large.
Bardstown, it's fine.
Yeah, Bardstown is fun. I see large gatherings of people as a chaotic element. You don't know what it's gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like
Yeah.
large gatherings of people in general. So yeah,
That I get. It's just, it doesn't feel... it doesn't feel enough. It's like deep water versus shallow water. There's not enough pressure. And so
I
there's
see.
too many sources to watch. There's too much that you can keep track of. It is, well,
Sprawl versus density.
yeah,
So you
it
think-
is.
So you think there's like a bell curve that eventually, once you're just around enough people, your brain stops paying attention to it?
Yes.
Yeah, basically.
Yes. And what stands out as high activity in low population areas is nothing in higher population areas. What stands out as uber far extreme alert danger in high density areas would be a national catastrophe in low density areas. If that same stealthy, potent potential for danger existed.
Yeah. I think I was just exposed to too many violent action flicks as a child and saw too many instances of walking through a crowd then getting stabbed without even realizing it.
Yeah, you gotta stop watching those prison movies.
Right?
Yeah. Shower scenes, though, come on!
So I was trying to explain this to a guy when I lived out in California.
Ew.
It's like we were talking about, like stereotypical, this you don't want to associate with these people because of the stereotypes. I'm like, look, dude, if that was the fact, me as a little Midwestern girl and from a teeny tiny town would never have moved here because y'all are gangsters and drug addicts.
Certainly dicks, I'll tell you that much.
And he's like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah.
Why are you running?
Right? It's like,
Why are you-
but that's not true. We're not those things. It's like, yep. You're not. And I live here now.
Something that's going wrong.
So, I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but we are here once again on the precipice of what this coterie and this troop might get up to.
Oh no.
There is an entire vista of repercussions and perceptions and moments to delve into from their last place we left them. And where we left them was in fact victorious. Let's just call it what it was. They had delved right into the heart of an outsider space. They stared into the gaping maw of gold, angry, flying rodents with a virulent strain of God knows what. And they escaped. They watched a multi-story stone edifice be immolated, and all of those inside that could not find other means of escape, adding to the funeral pyre. And they, very flammable, undead monsters of the night, watched it happen from a safe distance. So in most ways that are easily quantifiable, the shelter remained victorious. The other side of that coin, of course, is in remaining victorious, there are moments and informations that they have yet to share with themselves or come to grips with. There is one less member of the Chicago Primogen Council in existence. There are fewer wild wolves operating in and around Garfield Park. There are roughly 20 to 26 members of the cult of Helena / the Baham and Bahari who are no longer in existence. The fallout from that meaning, of course, there are jobs that need to be filled. There are positions of authority throughout the mortal world that are now absent. There are grieving families, friends, and associates that will have to be dealt with. But, and most importantly, the shelter remains victorious. They survived. They saw it through. They escaped. When we last left them, that's where we were. Them watching the end of the start of something. When we last left them, the fires of their frenetic action took physical form. But that's not where we're going to pick up with them. That's not where we're going to start. When I said we're on the precipice, we literally are. There's so much distance that we have yet to cover, and so much distance that we have covered since we last dived into these characters' minds, souls, and hearts. All of that to say, thank you all for being here. This hobby means a lot to me. I enjoy playing. I enjoy what it does for us, for me, and it would not be possible without your invested energies and efforts. And so, one more time with the feeling. For those in the back who didn't hear it the first time when I did not say it, without a shadow of a doubt, this is officially Soup City Sins Sheltered or Saved, Episode 6, Eating to Toil in the Heated Cold Air. As briefly touched on where we last left the characters, not being where we're going to start. Where we last left the character was 2 nights ago. The sun was far enough in the offing that would allow each of them the opportunity to alight wherever they found most safe. Where we're picking up 2 days later, having each of them have the opportunity to tend or address or discuss what is most important to them. So we will spend a few moments highlighting what, if anything, characters sought after or attempted to do over the last 2 nights. The promise of immortality is usually alluring enough for those not smart enough to think it through. For those who are able to be groomed and to be willing to relinquish their hold on the daylight hours. For those believing that you will be young and beautiful and stupid forever. The idea and promise of immortality comes without the fine print that goes along with that, meaning that you will only exist a portion of the day. Those roughly 12 hours of darkness is all that you will ever have. You will potentially be immortal in a forever night. Gone are walks through the park at sunrise, watching the waves crash against the shore. Gone is sunbathing, the heat of day, the enjoyment and noise of people enjoying the outside environs. Gone are coffee dates and all of those daytime activities, including the tedious ones: going to pay parking tickets, standing for traffic court, going to vote, having any say in what happens in the average other person's life. And that's just for the recent dead. The long dead have watched and been victim to the dictates of time, with them having very little, so much as a whisper as to what actually happens during the daylight world. And for many, inward and become greedy and craving and holding on to every little bit of what they were and exerting as much control as they possibly can to keep things from changing. So retainers, allies, and contacts, and cat's paws, and, well, if their love language was acts of service, they'd be smitten with every single solitary being that has done something for them during the daylight hours. Those who set their newspapers aside, who make sure they have a link to all of the articles, who make sure that they have the opportunity of getting those books and those releases and those pictures and, well, all of the others. So as we dive in, we swoop across the daylight world, dying for the day as people go home for supper and dinner and leave work or drive towards work, have sleep. Those who feel as if they've just blinked and all of their sleep was over. Those who couldn't sleep and stayed up the entire time. All of those individuals seeking some respite for the moment, whether it is behind the wheel of a car, a bus, a truck, riding the train, or otherwise finding a way to unwind from their day, prepare for their night. We turn our eyes towards Theo. 2 nights. It's a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things. Roughly 24 hours of actual activity, though we, including the entirety of time that Theo is unaware, would say 48. We'll start at the moment where the fire took hold. Fire clinging to the bricks, crawling up across the tiles, the screams from inside, and the stench of cordite, or more accurately, in the midst of it, the stench of pork ribs being roasted, broiled. What did Theo accomplish in these last 24 hours of night? Starting with the fire.
Oh. Once the fire took hold, he took a moment to enjoy the wanted destruction, because it actually made him feel actually good, because he hasn't had much time to actually enjoy it. But once the light started to get bright where his face could be fully realized, he backed off into the shadows as usual. And then he worked on getting to the information brokers and finding out what's the rumor mill saying about what happened at that night, and seeing if he could actually how much it cost to plant some information that basically how to paint the coterie in a positive, more heroic light. And then, as a side note, he'll start getting some information on pretty much what the vectors from those bats were, to see how far it actually starts to spread, so that he can get that information to Hestia.
He starts looking up reports of rabid bat attacks in the city since then.
Yeah. And any symptoms that people should be having, and just having a note and just putting them on like a whiteboard and start seeing how many the hospitals are admitting, how many people with these symptoms. Just getting kind of a vector.
Okay, so first, let's pick up with the idea of him connecting with gossip mongers, information brokers, the criminal types. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your manipulation and streetwise?
Nothing.
Okay. And next, to accommodate and account for his research in regards to vectors of flight for those rodents and things that stand out in regards to the news cycle, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your intelligence and technology?
Wow. I'm gonna re-roll my failures on that one.
There's a button.
Wow!
What a comeback.
Make sure to keep track of that willpower damage, my boy.
Oh, I will.
So, several things happen in rough, approximate, simultaneous bits of action. Theo isn't the hardiest of individuals. He's here for a good time, not for a long time. There's no longevity of any task for him. After a while, his mind wanders. After a while, the memories of his body's frailties catch up to him, meaning that he's a all-in or all-out sort of kindred. It also means that in the grand scheme of things, while there is the overwhelming, above average weight of his personality behind much of what he does, that typically rubs many of the criminal-minded and non-criminally minded individuals he associates with quite the wrong way. And while negative attention has been the only attention that he's favored, the only curried favor that he's actually garnered, there is something mentally deficient emotionally with him in regards to how he is perceived and accepted by those around him. That does not work to his benefit in dealing with individuals who have an etiquette of operation. While everyone understands that there is no honor amongst thieves, that's not in quite point of fact actual. There is very much you expect and count on a thief to be a thief. You expect and count on a trigger man to remain a trigger man. You expect and count on certain facets to happen. His strength and personality gets him those moments aside, those conversations, gets him in the room with those people who make those decisions. However, his bent, his antisocial bent, causes the obverse of what he was hoping. Close enough to taste the victory of his machinations, far enough away to not quite see them. Frustrated, he returns to his domicile. He returns to his haven. He returns to the warmth of his own world, the center of his own web, and dives into a full-on attack on every little small bit of information. And it's amazing how much he can find between Google dorking cameras, between geotag pictures and social media posts, and cross-referencing this and that. Before you know it, he has a map of every sighting over the last 36 hours. He's able to map out approximate ranges of attacks and sightings, and can just about pinpoint where the next several attacks should happen. He can't quite pinpoint exactly where they're roosting, but he has in fact dwindled it down to Little Village, near La Velita Park, near Columbus Park, just off of the Oak Park Conservatory, and just off of Winnemac Park, off of Foster. 3 fairly widespread areas, but all giving them the opportunity to strike the Avondale area, which is where most of the actual attacks have seemed to happen. The edge of the Chicago River providing them with ample and fertile hunting ground, the ease of traffic and the density of the population in the area giving them more than enough victims to feed on quickly. There is a little more than just animal wildness to them. They are attacking areas where there is a large amount of people who would get in each other's way in regards to fleeing. They are still only attacking, well, 2 and 3 people at a time before off they go. Most people are able to fight them off before things get completely, totally tragic for them. Yet, hours later, days later, moments later, welts and warts and pustules and all manner of virulence begins to attack those bodies, those victims. And what the claws and teeth don't do directly in savaged flesh, the infections do. And while that's happening, Miriam, the light of the fire changes the dark of the night into something mildly romantic, calling it what it is. The orange glow and the flecks of light as pieces of wood and flesh, and the stench of combined care and maintenance of mineral wax and all sorts of cleaning chemicals melding together with this lovely stench of barbecuing pork.
Well, delicious. Like she was in her car soon after the fire was lit, not sticking around for that. Fire bad. She'll wait long enough for whoever wants to get in the car with her to get in, but leaving fairly soon after ignition.
And over the next 2 nights?
And over the next 2 nights, she would ask if Hestia minded terribly. You know, she took over her science lab for a couple of nights and taking samples of her own wound and getting in and trying to like determine like viral load, virility, that sort of thing.
Okay, so she spends the bulk of her time focused on that aspect. Being as she, unfortunately for her, my condolences, she's quite dead. So the virulence should not spread at all. She is dead in every way that matters, from, well, warmth through all other biochemical reactions. And would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your intelligence and medicine? You do receive a +1 for Hester's lab.
I'm sorry. I just because I'm such a like a '90s kid, hearing Hester's lab makes me think of Dexter's lab and Dee Dee like ballet dancing through the lab, tearing shit up.
I mean, if we still had a couple of our old characters around, I'm sure one of them would be.
Again, my condolences. Miriam had always been an above average student. Her natural curiosity, her ability to see around some corners, helped her immensely in regards to progressing relatively quickly through school. So there are a lot of things that stayed on the tip of her mental tongue, a lot of things that she exercised and recalled and relied on over the course of her education. Time and experience being the thief of every sort of passion. Well, there are a few things that she does incorrectly. There are a few things that she could have done better. There are a few factors that she could have considered that didn't come to her until after those tests had already been run, until after that sample had already been, well, sampled to the point of exhaustion. Yet, and still, she's dead. There shouldn't be any virulence. Yet, and quite surprisingly, there is a scientifically traceable explosion in regards to the viral load. What's the rough approximate viral load of an active Ebola infection?
A lot, probably.
Yes, a lot. And even that would be as if there was just a moat compared to a mountain for what is present in her samples, which is an impossibility. Her samples, her flesh, her blood, her vitae is dead. It cannot carry, nor should it be able to hold such a high viremia as it does. While with Ebola, the seminal fluid stays positive for months to years after those few very small percentage of survivors. Yet if they came into contact with what's in her vitae, there's almost a 97% mortality rate. There are some natural antibodies that could grow to fight, and which is the only reason why the mortality rate would be as high as 97%. But there's no way she should be seeing what she sees from those samples. She is dead. The viruses should not be able to continue multiplying in her dead cells. And speaking of dead cells, there is a weight to action. There's a weight to perception. There's a responsibility inherent in being the face of the shelter. One of the few reliable members expected to still carry on that banner of the disbanded shelter. So as the tempo goes up, as the very inaudible whoosh takes her, she watches as the stone edifice eats itself, the flame crawling across it like a angry anthill. The cries inside of those who won't cease to be in smoke, flame. What does Hestia do? 2 nights we have to account for her actions. With the building aflame, what is it that she gets up to?
That first night, would she know that she should wait for Damien, or is that not something that she needed to do?
Not to impact her agency, but she has been a hound long enough that she knows the standard operating procedures. She knows there needs to be an accounting. There's fire, police, there's going to be an investigation, there's going to be all sorts of attention paid. And as well ensconced as she is on the North Pole in Rogers Park, the same can't be said for here. She can't reach into someone's pocket and get them to look that way while something happens right here. She can't deter, impact, or otherwise affect an investigation that's happening right here. This is far enough away from her sphere of influence and the reach of the shelter that they are effectively behind enemy lines.
Okay, with that being said, she would look to the others who haven't already absconded. If you don't want to be here for the questioning, I suggest you get the fuck out, because I have to stay. If you are going to stay with me, know that he will be up your ass with a fine-tooth comb and ask you all sort of things that might just be uncomfortable, but again, that is entirely up to you whether you stay or go. I will mention that you were here, but I will do my best to cover for you because it is my head that's on the chopping block. So, like I said, this is it. Last chance, get the fuck out or stay. And then she will stay out of sight, but visible enough if Damien's looking for her so that she can answer questions and make her report.
So, because of expedience and time and lots of pokers in the fire that need to be accounted for, to be so kind as to go ahead and roll your charisma. And are you attempting to hedge Hestia's bet in regards to what she relays?
She is going to go with it's not what you say, it's what you can prove. Because no matter what she says, it's what's provable at this point.
Okay. So what does she think is provable?
That there were masquerade breaches. She acted in defense of the lives of few overweighing the lives of many, or the lives of many overweighing the lives of few. To keep this, she is going to mention the bats, the Gould bats, and where they came from. Seeing the painted lady in the building and then having her disappear. That there was obviously a Nosferatu presence, especially due to the bats. She's not going to mention Rosa.
Okay. That being the case, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your manipulation and subterfuge? And while that roll is happening, Aaron, Hesha did give you the opportunity to stick around. Theo had already slipped off. Miriam was waiting for anyone to get into the car. Would Aaron have stuck around during that moment to speak with the sheriff?
Ooh. I think there would be a certain amount of trust that he would put in Hestia to convey the truth of what happened here. And in the meantime, wouldn't want to waste night on sitting around and giving a debriefing. This may or may not also be because I know that if I was asked, I would 100% give a different answer.
Okay, the reason why I asked was to approximate his information if he was going to be there. As he would slink off, would there have been any exchanging of future contact? Yes, everyone has an idea as to where the shelter is, but he has never actually been inside the shelter, has he?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
Just kind of a, Alright, Hestia, I'll leave this portion to you, but, where do we want to meet up next, or how do you want to get in contact with me?
As being a hip and with the times camera person, she will write down her burner number. She has one. There's no point in denying that fact.
He's just gonna look at it and be like, you carry a phone on you?
She shows him the Nokia brick that's probably like 20 years out of date, but still works.
To each their own. Actually, I should have figured that out by the whole you telling me you called the boss man. How did you get a text out on that thing?
Really fast fingers.
I see. Alright, well, if you get a ring from a payphone, it might be me. Otherwise, good luck, have fun, enjoy yourself, yeah.
Okay. And with that, after that parting, Damien and quite a few, far too many other of the hounds and those at his service managed to arrive. The immediate investigation that's going on, you've got several of them melding and mixing with the fire department and police, and you've got the fact that you've never seen Damien on site when there were mortals around. His youthful face and, well, let's just call it what it is. He does not look his age. Neither mortally nor immortally does he look his age. And he's able to exploit that youthful appearance, slipping between people's trust and dancing on the edge of their awareness. And while most wary kindred would immediately notice the fact that he doesn't have the usual tight jeans and slim hoodie, nor a man purse, nor any of the easily stereotypical signs of modern youth. Yet the older fire department and fire marshal and police all but ignore him. He's just a nosy kid at the edge of the crowd, and he calls attention to himself with a little bit of this, and he pokes a little bit of attention there. And while he's distracting and dismaying other members of the hounds, And unfortunately for Hestia, she recognizes that some of those hounds are in fact the wolf pack. Some of those hounds are members of the wolves, the gangrel. She recognizes Anthea. She recognizes Lester. They were there when Nitro and Bluebird were done in by Courteous. They were there when the shelter brought Lulu in for enhanced questioning, which is a very impolite way of saying they tortured lies out of him just enough so that he could be proclaimed, well, ready for death. So seeing them mixing and mingling and helping Damien with the mortals of the investigation isn't the easy thing. And finally, after assuring that things would progress as quickly as possible and they could get to the bottom of whatever was going on, Damien finds you lurking at the edge of the gathering. And you exchange information with him, and he does his usual nods and offering a question here, a question there. You can tell that there's quite a few other things that he probably would have asked if you were anyone else, but he doesn't poke at the holes in the logic. He doesn't pry into the corners of what you're saying. He jots down what you're saying mentally. Tells you that he'll be in contact in a couple of days. So lay low, stay off of everybody's radar until they get to the bottom of everything that happened. And those 2 nights, as Theo attempts to make contact at the shelter, those 2 nights as Miriam makes her way and utilizes the lab, is there anything else that Hestia would be doing?
Anand is the nightly thing, so she would make sure that Anand is aware of not what's going on, but what's going on with her directly, being as how she's infected. So she would also try to stay away from those in the shelter, tell them that she has a cold and it's really contagious and she doesn't want to get anybody else in the shelter sick. She will let Miriam into her lab, but she will take herself to the Chantry and will have them study whatever they can of this virus and then help her purge it from her system, because she knows she is going to need to be empty to burn it off and refilled again, so that they would have the methods and means to help her with that.
So she wouldn't be at the shelter when Miriam needed to use her lab, and she wouldn't be at the shelter when Theo tried to come with his information.
Well, like I said, that first night when Miriam comes to ask, she would definitely be there for that, but then leave like after, so that her and Anand could go back to the Chantry and she could handle getting the infection burned away.
Okay, so she's going to go into debt to the Chantry. Would you be so kind to go ahead and roll her charisma and status for their efficacies and what they were able to work out? They are not scientists, nor is the standard understanding of how to deal with virulence or how virulent it actually is.
And since my hunger increased to 2, I'm going to say that was due to the pain she was in and dealing with the stress of Damien. Would it continue to the night next?
Yeah, we're not going to roll the rouse checks until after the awakening rouse we're done with all of the pre-build up for what was happening over these 2 nights. Because it's not as if she would go hunting, or because thus far no one's mentioned that aspect.
It's a good thing that I took my turn last, and thusly can take advantage of this.
Hestia's esteem amongst the Chantry, the reputation of Corinne, her reputation, her association with Sylvia, her connections to the regent himself, all conflate to the point where she is assisted. The problem being is that it is in fact a significant risk, not just to herself, but to everyone else. They do everything they can to isolate her, to quarantine her, because the risk to herself physically almost matches the risk to the other kindred around her, but more so to the mortal acolytes, retainers, assistants at the Chantry. And there's a factor that Dusabo brings up. What we've taken in doesn't always come out physically. What we've taken in and absorbed into our being becomes part of our soul, which affects that on the other side of the shroud. So efforts are made, circles are drawn, wards are put up. It is a whole production. Not quite white-suited sterility, but very, very close. Lots of monitoring, lots of conversation, lots of probing how they might supernaturally attack the virulence. And while that's happening, with Hesha having given that spoiler warning and the flames going up and Aaron sneaking off, we pick up shortly after him stepping off from where Hesha is, waiting for the cavalry, waiting for the backup, waiting for the long arm of the tower's law. What is it that Aaron does over the next 2 nights?
So, to start off with, he's kind of in somewhat of a expended state after that. So his immediate goals after that would be to go and refuel the old fuel tank and get to work, both getting in contact with the, I believe her name is, let me scroll out really quickly, Khadija Al-Kindi, the Ashira emissary here. Is she like somebody that I can move towards getting in contact with to update her on my hunt?
She is part of the chains of freedom that the Banu consider themselves part of. Ever since leaving Alamut and the schism, there's been a strengthening of ties, one Banu, one child to the next, because at the end of the day, their faiths are sort. The eldest has, Rashulgi has ensured that anyone who does not worship Hakim himself is anathema. So all of the members of the Ashira that are part of the Banu are working towards building stronger ties with each other than have ever been in place. Years upon years ago, before Aaron's time, there was a actual caste system based on how each individual Banu sought to carry out their greater works, protecting the faiths and the mortals from those such as themselves. There was those who pursued the more esoteric, the spiritual. There were those who pursued the more social, and there were those who pursued the paths of blood. And now, while it's not every Banu for himself because of the attempt at building a tapestry, it very much is individualistic in regards to a Banu's ability to flow from social, spiritual, physical, and back. No one's bound or locked into a prescribed methodology. This has had many benefits, many errors as well. But one of them is that while not in the homeland, while not in North Africa, while not in Southern Europe, while not in Western Asia, there's still a understanding as to the need for representation. There's still the need for connection. And so, while she is officially an emissary from the Ashira, she's also afforded the same responsibilities and rights as a member of the Primogen Council.
Oh, okay. So this is effectively my boss in the area.
Yes.
Then yeah, the first night after he gets himself nice and ready to go would be spent trying to make connections and translate his information about Alexander Hunt to her, let her know the events as he remembers them, and that over the course of the next night he is going to be investigating and more or less stalking the location that he believes them to have retreated to.
Now, here's the thing. In his attempts to do so, what information does he decide is how he saw it?
Let's see. The cult of Helena, as well as certain elements, such as the Painted Lady, were gathering for some kind of ritual. The Painted Lady did not, as far as he's aware, engage in the overall ritual. Once things had kicked off, he lost track of her. But it was some kind of Bahari mass embrace was the original thought. And once they discovered the Undercroft, it became very clear that it was something a bit more genocidal. He lets her know that he believes the intention of it was less of a mass embrace, as was their original idea, and more of a create a pool of food for these bats to dig into, to latch onto, before spreading out and causing more problems. And he lets her know that in order to contain not only the infection, but any potential embraces that he may not have noticed, they purge the area on fire. With the aid of the gangrel Primogen, who lost her life in the battle. Her unlife.
Who else?
Who else? As in, who else was here?
Who else knows that the Primogen is no longer amongst us?
Hestia and Miriam of the shelter, and did Theo ever give his name?
You've all worked together before.
Oh yeah, and Theo Monk. a fan of the shelter.
Is there any way you can control that information flow to keep the information to just them, or make sure that they can't spread that information?
Hestia is in the midst of being debriefed by Damien. I don't imagine that she would like to spread the information of her involvement with the death of another Primogen, but I cannot guarantee that she hasn't.
Good, we need to find out for sure. We need to keep this information from spreading. A open seat of power that we don't assume control over would definitively cause more turmoil than not. There's already the issues with that blight, Evan Klein. He already has, well, caused issues. And as the capital city of the Camarilla here in the contiguous United States, we need to assure that as much tranquility exists as possible. The news of the Gangrel Primogen's no longer existence must be kept until we can find a way to assure we control that power.
Would you want me to redirect my nightly efforts towards that effect then?
Yes, this information can't get out. We need a few days to assure that we have the opportunity of seizing these opportunities so that we can oversee the protection of the public. And we can't do that if the present Primogen are fighting amongst themselves for extra scraps of, well, power.
Understood. I'll get in contact with Hestia and then begin tracking down any other loose threads.
And so, having an idea as to how disparate and scattered the coterie is, we settled in with those 2 nights passing. So would everyone be so kind as go ahead and roll your awaken rouse with your present hunger levels to see where we begin moving forward with all of the pokers in the fire while the iron is absolutely red hot. It is 23 after the hour. Let's take a quick 10 and then dive back in.
Alrighty. Before you disappear, Nobu. Damn, he's already gone.
Yes, he is.
Oh, what do you want me to put down for the attempt at hunt night 1?
The effort's a matter of calls, so he'd begin his hunger roll at 1.
All right.
All right, so who's back?
Yo.
Technically.
I'm still here.
So we're 3 for 4. Sorry, we're just reading ahead in the script. While we wait for Hesha to get back, are there any questions?
Yeah, no. So something we were discussing. Is superficial willpower healed? I know none of us declared going and interacting with a touchstone. That's why I reneged my healing there.
No,
It's
superficial.
aggravated.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Superficial is the greater of resolve or composure per night.
No, okay. So unless one of us has a 1 in that, we should be fine.
Should be.
Or you can actually do, some of your more basic things, and that gives you superficial willpower back.
Theo, we don't need to know what you do while you're watching Hestia through the window.
Great.
I'm just saying, putting it out there, giving you guys a hand.
Your sort of hand you should probably keep to yourself. But, and...
Try to.
Yeah, is that why you wear glasses? That... that was low. That was definitively low-hanging fruit. Sorry.
I mean, sometimes low-hanging fruit is the best.
But no, Theo is absolutely correct that yes, there is a bonus or a potential bonus for achieving individual desires that could reflect in temporary willpower growth. So, for instance, if someone's desire was be accepted by the anarchs, and over the course of a session, they made friends and were accepted as one of the anarchs. Or if someone's desire was something as simple as punch the sheriff in his nose, and they successfully did so. Sometimes even just the attempt of it would quantify enough.
Speaking of, I should probably change my desire at some point. It's still the original one of membership to the Camarilla.
I need to put a new one down since I believe I completed the desire?
I think you did. You did wrong one right tonight.
Oh, you're right. Totally.
Nothing like starting an inquisition against the cult of Helena.
Exactly. They need to be purged.
Hey, I'm sorry, those are my feeding grounds, thank you.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Grounds are filthy.
Well, the body is a temple. And yeah, you will be taking a small hit. Luckily, Miriam, if I remember correctly, didn't have a herd per se, so it's fine.
Not a herd per se, just what I have access to through my floor sheet.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I mean, I still have the whole ass another cult to deal with. It's fine. I have more.
Ashley, you're back.
Ooh, sorry about that. Partner was having an issue with one of his new medical devices, so I had to help.
Based on the theme of our conversation before you got back, does that medical device require a pump that's placed somewhere in the lower stomach that you push on and engage?
No, it's a lymphedema sleeve for his leg, and it squeezes it.
You weren't supposed to actually answer.
I mean, it is lower part of the body, technically.
So, while we had the opportunity of asking any question, does Hesha have any question before we dive back in?
Did it take them just the one night to purge her, or did it take both nights?
We haven't dealt with that specifically, but yeah, she is quarantined and isolated, and we will be dealing with that post haste because it very much is very medieval, to say the least. And while successfully getting their assistance, there's nothing safe about toiling with the beast. There's nothing safe about rousing to hunger fight and surviving. There is absolutely nothing remotely safe about that for anyone involved. It is effectively a self-administered coma that you're awake for. It is death-defying.
Get cool visions and stuff.
We shall find out. Now that we've all returned, we are going to go top down. And we're going to go alphabetical in this regard. We're going to skip Aaron for a hot second because because it's Aaron.
Oh.
He's a man with a mission. Would you be so kind as to... Hang on, let's see if I can do that from here. Instead of stepping away, I probably should have did this before I left, but... You know, what are we gonna do? Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your rouse, Hestia? Use use the slash rouse.
Yeah, you may want to adjust it down before you slash rouse.
Wait, what?
You got a little robotic.
I was like, wait, why?
What do you mean? So
That wait, why was S2 Aaron saying I should adjust it down first?
So here's the situation, and here's the problem of it all. Absolutely ravenous. She has done the unthinkable. She has survived a medieval leeching. Her vitae drained beyond simple sanguination. Her vitae and the beast within pushed to the absolute limit of itself. The virulence in her vitae coating her skin, extruded and extruded, and worst of all, as a Tremere, the worst thing that someone can do is waste the precious gift of immortality. Kindred vitae is extraordinarily valuable to their research, their studies, and their hematics. Yet her vitae emptied into a bowl and burned. Completely discarded, not even down the drain where there could be months, weeks, years later, some happenstance that proved profitable for the chantry. No, her vitae was taken from her, emptied, squeezed out and wrung out like a very well-used dish rag, and then burned. In the starvation, in the leeching of her vitae, there is a very real understanding that tonight she would not have arisen. And if she did, she very well would not be Hestia. There is a cost to doing business. And when tempting fate, that cost often is the person in their entirety. One does not go on a quest and return as they left. Even if to the victor goes the spoils, tomorrow's person isn't who you are today. And that was a very real risk of it all. The solution she'd hit upon and decided was the best course of action. And yet, she survived. Which means we're going to go ahead and roll your resolve plus composure DC 4. And while that's happening, Aaron, your mission set. You have 2 priorities, though, of descending, escalating value.
Mm-hmm.
Alexander, and the curtailing of any information. How would he begin to do so? How would he seek out the other persons that were there to assure their silence?
Ooh, by the peoples that were there, we mean the individuals of the shelter.
Yes.
So yeah, he'd first give Hestia's, like, the quickest thing would be to give Hestia's cell a call or burner phone. And
the lack of response, what would that inspire in him, knowing that she's spoken with the sheriff?
Hunger 5, right?
Yes.
he'd be shooting for the shelter immediately.
The shelter is an institution not just amongst the kindred, but amongst the neighborhood and the community of individuals who've made the place their home. There are persons who've been here since day one, who were first brought clothes by Hestia, brought necessary items and utensils, and then as she moved more and more into building with her African partner, Simone, Mr. Sorochi, it into a safe haven for them. They began being viewed as family, and their legend amongst those who were unhoused and homeless and down on their luck was magnified 100 times over easily, because you had a safe place that didn't demand you give lip service to some religion, to some god who left you to suffer. You didn't have to admit to being an addict, even if you weren't, to receive that help. You didn't have to fear being mentally, socially, spiritually, or physically accosted on their premises. It was one of the few places where female homeless members felt safe. It's one of the few places where, even as it is in fact a co-ed shelter, there were family units who felt safe on the premises. The sad truth of the matter is that most shelters, if they are co-ed, are not really co-ed. Most female homeless do everything they can to stay out of such locations. If they are co-ed, it is perceived and actually unsafe for small men, small women, children who are homeless to be there. Everyone's on their toes because staff can't be everywhere, even in the places where the staff actually cares. It is a pit of usury and suffering heaped upon suffering, very much gilding the lily, as it were, but not at the Harris Viral shelter. Those considerations, those fears are unrealized and eventually come to not be a factor in the wariness. The hypervigilance that one needs at other facilities isn't present. And as such, there are residents, clients, extended family that have been at the Harris Viral shelter since day one. So getting inside and getting past the woman at the desk and the active staff members to find Hestia is not the easiest of things. Would Aaron try the social route, or would he try to subvert what little security he can see and just get to the office or just prowl around till he finds Hestia.
He is a very blunt and direct man, so I can see him just trying to worm his way in rather than try and talk to the staff or anything like that.
Okay, maybe we can just go ahead and roll your. It's more of a manipulation and stealth, or charisma and stealth, as he attempts to blend in with the unhoused, the homeless, and the community instead of interacting with the staff directly. He's trying to avoid notice and blend in with population.
Would this fall under break-in?
Yes.
All right. And we will go ahead and, you know what? I'm going to trust in the heart of the dice. This doesn't seem like a life or death situation. I don't really see... Well, no, him maybe.
He hasn't met Amalia, has he?
No, he has not. What he does know
I was
is
sitting
that...
there cracking up because it reminded me of that night with the cops.
Yeah, all he knows is that his boss told him to get in contact with this person, and the one thing, like the one line that they gave him to get in contact with them is not working, no matter how many times he tries, so.
After talking to the sheriff.
After talking to the sheriff, so he is getting it. Alright, fuck you with your 2 successes. We don't play that game here. Alright. There we go.
The funny thing is, and this is the part that he only admits to himself. This is a homeless shelter. This is a place for people who have nowhere else to be. This is a place where the dregs of society gather. This is a place for the discarded, the unwanted, the unloved. This is the place, well, it shouldn't quite be as open as a sieve, but it definitely should not be as difficult as it was. People were asking him security questions in casual conversation as he mixed and mingled with the population, with the community, with the homeless who were here. And unlike his expectation of him already preparing, a inhalant to fight off the stench and, well, humors of the unwashed masses, everyone is clean. Everyone's clothing is either patched or relatively new. Everyone is presentable enough to actually go out and interview if they could, if they would, if they might. You are sure that you spotted not one but several different polo shirts from several different restaurants and convenience stores and other signs that individuals who are here on premises are employed somewhere in the city. The security here should not be as high as it is. The social security, the actual security, he has spotted an ungodly amount of hidden pin cameras across the place. He has spotted an ungodly amount of cameras that have both sound and visual capabilities. He has spotted an ungodly amount of what should be blind corners having mirrors, or there's always someone loitering. The conversations checking down how much he knows about whom works there, who has lived there. It is ridiculously overwrought in actual security. Luckily, his exchanges in time with Hestia helped him to blend in just enough not to cause suspicions to arise. His ability at blending into the situation and breaking into places where he shouldn't be do nothing but pay dividends against actual security. And as impossible as it is, Miriam, your body is a patient 0. As impossible as it is, the virus in your vitae has grown. As impossible as it is, you are not only a dead container to carry it forth into the world, you seem to be housing it as it eats on the strength of your vitae and grows. That's a lot to deal with. That's a lot to process. And as Hess out the shelter alone, taking your sketchbook, you find yourself making your way out of the shelter to take a moment to yourself to put 1 and 1 together to find out whether it really is 11, or is it simply just 2. The impossibilities happening beneath the surface of your being would be a Christmas miracle if it was Christmas and if it didn't promise anything but death. So, sketchbook in hand, seeking a moment for yourself to escape the truth that exists within you. Hesha having bugged out, unlike everything you've known about Hesha previously. You find Aaron making his way through the shelter.
She is doing her very best to avoid people.
Okay. So I assume that means you're hiding from mortals and not me.
Probably over in the parking garage. As I recall, there's a way to get there without actually going through the main lobby.
Well, then I suppose as he kind of trundles in, looks around, notices you, double checks to make sure nobody else is here, and just, hey, have you seen Hestia?
Not for a couple of days, but I've been kind of buried in the lab, so...
More specifically, since she saw the sheriff?
I mean, last I saw her was before that, so...
And that doesn't concern you at all?
Nah. She'll be here eventually.
Okay.
Besides, there would be signs... She kind of gestures around that she's not with us anymore.
Okay, you know there are worse things than death, yeah?
I mean,
beyond that,
have we ever told you about the worm that lived on the other side?
What? You know what? I don't have time for that. Where would she go if not here?
Well, if not here, I've been to a place with her where most of us aren't welcome.
Okay. Where is that?
I can't guarantee that's the one she's at.
But it's the only one that you know of.
Yes.
Alright. I take it I'm not going to like the whatever this place is.
It can be a little spooky.
Alright, lay it on me. What is it? Where is it, more specifically?
Well, I suppose I can drive you. Might not want to get too close, though. She'll,
Works for
gesture
me.
at her shoulder scratch.
Yeah. I guess I'll be taking backseat. Have you seen Theo around?
Nah. Am I supposed to?
Yeah, just a question. And have you spoken to anyone about the party the other night?
I've been in a lab for 2 days.
That I'll just take that as a no. Well then, and if you're not too busy,
Alright, well, let's go, I guess. And,
And as you all prepare to embark on wherever it is that you're in fact heading, there's a certain comfort that comes from being present and unseen. There's a certain amount of perverse voyeurism that, while not anywhere near as addictive as heroin or cocaine or methamphetamines in general, is considerably harder to resist than other things. As they speak amongst themselves, is there anything Theo would like to say or do? Having overheard what they've been discussing.
I haven't seen Theo either.
pardon?
Or you ask Miriam if she saw Theo, and I haven't seen her. I haven't seen him either.
Oh, wait, what? What the fuck? What? I gotta get used to that. Well, thank you for arriving at the very optimal time.
I try. It's a gift, though, but I try. However, storyteller, would he have been around when Hestia was saying she had a cold?
A cold? No, Miriam said that.
Hestia said that because she didn't want to be in the.
Yes, but he was beating the bush. Remember, he was beating the bush and triangulating during that period. So he has the 3 places where those virulent bats might still be out there and are definitively still out there because they are not a native species as they exist. They are, in fact, invasive, and they are, in fact, starting a small issue with the population.
Although, gang, I think we may have a bigger problem than finding Hestia. Even though Hestia is important, I think we have a smaller problem.
Yeah. Bigger or smaller, which is it?
Well, a bigger problem than finding the smaller problem, which is Hestia, which is also a small problem because if we don't act on this fast, things are going to get... What's the word that I'm looking for?
Okay, well, it doesn't matter. What is this bigger, smaller problem?
Okay, yes. The bats.
Okay.
I triangulated their most likely position.
And you want me to roll out there with a shotgun and take him out of the air? Like,
a bow and arrow would be cooler, but yeah, actually, that would be awesome.
what kind of moron runs around with a bow and arrow?
And a moron runs around with a shotgun.
Shotguns are
Why
vastly
weapons?
superior to bows and arrows. I'm just saying. Because we've got to go kill some flying entities. Have you dealt with any of them?
He has some copies of the printouts of the most likely locations. They're hitting large populations of people and spreading their spreading the love.
Okay.
Well, that's a fucking problem, sure.
But we probably need to remove them before anything else happens because, well, you know.
Oh, fine.
For fuck's sake. Alright. Well,
I don't know. If you trust that she is okay, then we can take a detour here.
It's Hestia. If she can survive the madness that happened with all the things that happened to the shelter since it opened, I'm pretty sure this is probably not going to be the worst of the worst.
The moment you get arrogant is the moment you die. Again.
Hestia isn't
Never trust in
arrogant.
something to be 100% certain.
alright, well,
Well, I'm certain
whatever.
this attack is going to happen.
I am leaving, so if people are coming, you're coming, or you're going. I don't know which.
I'm going with Miriam.
Yeah, I'll follow along too. Which of these spots is closer? He says, just kind of gesturing around the map and figuring out which of them they can get to first. Oh, Theo, try and keep your distance from Miriam, by the way.
Oh, because of that little love tap that she got?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
I don't know much about viruses, but I'm pretty sure as long as she doesn't rub all over me, it should be okay.
Remembering the events of the other day and how she was easily accepted into the orgiastic cult. Rubbing all over you might not, unfortunately,
That's
might not.
usually a pretty easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And then she'll shrug.
And just because she was
Car
infected,
and starts going.
and don't forget, just because her path of infection was a scratch and a bite and an attack, doesn't mean that she, as it's multiplied, has not changed the way it might spread. Mutations happen.
But we are getting in a container with her that actually has so, you know, there's that.
Right. I mean, there is that. But, you know, this also wouldn't be a thing if people didn't just go breaking down doors.
That's true. I didn't break down any doors, so that's true.
Really? Theo Monk did not break down any barriers? You sure about that?
Yep.
I see. Oh! Is that your final roll? Is that the final outcome? So as the three members of the coterie leave the shelter, we turn our gaze as they banter their way across the city. We turn our gaze to Hestia sitting in a darkened cell. On the ground, etched into the stonework beneath her feet, is a circle of protection that encapsulates the entirety of the interior of this cell. As a ranking member of the Chantry, her cell is larger than the average. There's a place for study, a desk, a series of journals to be filled, some with notations already in them. Being dead, there's no need for toiletries, and so there isn't any need for waters. Along the top uppermost portions of all the walls are recessed lighting that allows a small bit of light to study, read, and otherwise engage oneself in. The remnants of her bleeding, being bled, being drained, are still there at the edges of the circle of protection. There are several bowls with the vitae burned to a nice black sooty ichor. On the ground at her feet, in a very real state of panic, is Anand. Being isolated with Hestia meant that she was in the cell with her as they resurrected for the evening. The last thing Hestia actually remembers when she was in full faculties of herself was the fact that the last drop of the virulent pustule causing vitae in her system hit the bowl with a resounding hiss as the fire consumed it. The stench of her vitae, once melon rich and sweet as wine, now smelling off, smelling like rancid something. Not quite meat, but also definitively not light vitae. There was a missing iron, a coppery tang that should have been there that was not. It's the last cognizant thing to realize it. Save now, coming to herself, Anand in a near catatonic state, and realizing a thought that kept playing at the back of her mind. Jonathan Myers' voice. No, not like this, Hess. Come on, baby girl. And looking down on Anand, frozen with the last bit of vitae in her. The only thing that even remotely animates her, and that being in Hestia's gullet, that having brought sense back to her conscious thought, looking down on her Maoli, now catatonic and torpor because of blood loss caused by her.
She is making a considered effort not to tear because that would waste what little precious blood she managed to get. And anything to tip the beast back forward. So she's going to put space between her and Anand as much as possible and yell for help. Hoping that they hear the presence in her voice enough to know that she is herself as far as she can be, but that they need to get Anand out now.
There is a immediate image as to what a cell is when the word is mentioned, and what you think of tells a lot about where you've read, what you've been exposed to, because it's not by accident that a priest or monk's cell is the exact same word as a prisoner's cell. The connotation behind it, of course, that the priest is trapped here in this world of earthly sin, and that the cell is the only safe place for them to worship in peace, to not be beset by all of the ills and wrongs of the world. while just the obverse of that is used for the prisoner. It's the one place where the rest of the world is safe from them. They, having lost their freedom for one reason or another, are no longer safe for the world at large. And in the bowels of the High Park Chantry, that is exactly what this cell serves as purpose for, keeping the rest of the world safe from Hestia, and Hestia safe from evils and ills that she would cause in the rest of the world. The process, successful though it is, of course, there's always a side effect. There's always another edge that she yells in the silent cell, her mildly torpid at her feet. Instead of the hurried footfalls of her jailers or her safekeepers, her guardians, there's the slow trundling. All right, calm down. We'll be with you in a moment. And it all begins to slowly filter back to her. The Tremere that have been helpful in draining her. The Tremere that have been tending her. Several different shifts, several different people. And on this particular evening, only Magister Canty available. His bald pate, his priest garb, his vestments swishing and fighting on themselves. His collar, the only bit of color anywhere on him, because even as he was embraced older in age, he'd already lost much of his color, even though he was only in his 50s. Braced. He'd lived a hard life before giving himself over to the seminary, and he'd had a hard death. So as he saunters and ambles and makes his way there, there's a predatory understanding as to what sort of Tremere he is. Officious, what's needed at best, what's wanted not even a consideration. And you will be handing into the Chantry as a whole a torpid Mao-Li of your domain, of your efforts. She is your responsibility. And you, unfortunately, the fact that you can consider that, the way those options are in fact in you. So as he gets to the door of your cell and just opens, none of the jangly keys you expect from any of the old movies or TV shows, he simply just opens the door. Is there anything or everything that Hestia is considering?
She does not want to leave Anand with this man alone because she has a very deep suspicion that Anand would either disappear or be finished off and she blamed for it, and them using that against her as a you failed her so you killed her, i.e. losing the bet that she made with one of the other magisters. Sorry. So to keep that from happening, once he moves to help gather up Anand, she is going to get to her feet and attempt to leave with him, because now that the taint is out of her blood, she feels like that the circles won't hold her anymore or whatever, and that she should be able to leave.
Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your resolve plus blood source? And while that roll is happening, who's riding shotgun, by the way?
Not me. I'm staying away from that plague carrier.
Are you sure you don't want a little kiss?
Nope.
Hey
Well,
guys, do y'all think
Theo,
it's a good idea if I sat next to her, or should I just sit in the back with Bayou Bill here in his shotgun?
I mean, just so that everyone's clear, Miriam does drive an SUV.
Well, he gets in the back seat. Throw me. Face down.
There's a reason why I asked, not simply because of the virulence of Miriam's contagion. It's always easier taking in the sights from shotgun. You can see the road ahead of you and out the window. And for locals, you can always ask, so where are you going? That was your exit. That was your turn. For the back seat, it's a little harder. It's a little more difficult. You can get caught up in the music and get caught up in conversation. You get caught up in your phones. For those of you say screw the tower as a whole. All of that to say, by not riding shotgun, you all are effectively a -1. Be so kind as to roll your wits plus either streetwise or survival.
I see. I mean, I really don't want to be near her.
You don't have to be.
It's fine.
No, you guys are riding in the back. You guys are being liveried across the city towards your destination. You guys agreed to go to one or two or more of those locations that Theo had brought you through careful and somewhat creepy ability to triangulate through other people's social medias, their Ring cameras, their videos taken, their posts on Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, as well as Indeed and several other social media sites. His ability to literally hack society to find information and pinpoint and triangulate raises all sorts of questions if you all spent time thinking about how he got that information. We're finding out how he got the information. The printouts don't show how he did it, just the fact that he did. So as you two share the back seat, your roles, we'll say that we're not going to even go with the roles. We'll just ignore the role and give that completely not an opportunity nor an option. You're not anywhere near Avondale. You're not near any of those other locations. You're on Lakeshore Drive, cruising down, watching the lake crash against the shoreline. You're melding onto the Midway Plaisance, down and around and back up into Hyde Park, coming from south along Lake Park so that you can make that left onto 50th and circle around what is the Blackstone Library. Its grounds, of course, expanded, the huge wrought iron fenced in grass yard where families and students of the local high school and sometimes even the college come and picnic and read their books and sit with their headphones on and enjoy the summer breeze and sometimes the winter breezes. Needless to say that this is not Avondale. Needless to say this isn't any of the three locations that have been printed out. This is Hyde Park.
Just kind of peek around from the back seat. Hey, what's the deal?
No. Picking up a passenger,
Who?
and she will hop out of the car.
Aaron will step out as well, I guess.
Both of them step out. Theo is going to pull all his energy together and all his bravery in Unseen Passage.
Indeed. Brave, brave Sir Robin. I'm just kind of...
I mean, come on, Miri is not at all intimidating.
I'm not much for undiscussed changes to the plan. What's up here? Who are we picking up?
I mean, I don't know what plan you were talking about, but I never agreed to anything. And she will go up to the door.
There is a certain regality to the Blackstone Library. It is a local landmark. It is downright Grecian and idealesque. There's a huge copper dome atop the building. It's a multi-storied center of learning. The Doric columns and its name emblazoned upon the actual building itself mark it as built around the same time as Field Museum of Science and Industry and the Art Institute. It is one of the throwback buildings in Chicago. There are two huge stone braziers, which are usually used as planters, or most people realize that they're only planters, but the truth of the matter is they are sentries. They are guardians, and as you all mount the steps to head towards that main entrance, that door that abuts Blackstone, you all feel the power therein. Even without unseen senses, even without denoting the invisible world all around you all, there is power here, not just from belief of the community that operates around the building, but there is actual palpable invisible power abutting you all. And as you all approach and get close to the door, the intensity of it grows and swells. Speaking of growing and swelling, the warding circle holding you was clearly not constructed by Regent DuSable nor Erdichto. Hell, you can taste that it wasn't even constructed by Regent Rose. The circle of protection keeping you in, it's a relatively flimsy thing that you bat away with the sheer power of your will as you abut it, Hestia. Canty, of course, lifting up the torpid form of Anand as if she weighed nothing. All kindred are lighter than they seem. Some say it's only the 21 grams of the human soul, but the truth of the matter is a lot of your internal organs aren't really internal organs as they are known. They're deflated, empty, unused, unfilled with blood and matter, so they don't have as much volume. And so there's a certain lightness being natural to being kindred. It's one of the many hidden costs of rousing and pretending to be human, the swelling of certain things unused with Tay to cause them to seem as if they are in fact filled and operational. So following behind them after batting aside the warding circle, What is Hestia's demands, statements, questions, or suggestions? As he, of course, I can fix her right up. Oh, there's, it may take a little doing, but I'm sure that I can make sure she receives all that she needs, and perhaps maybe more.
And I will be with you every step of the way. She is my responsibility.
Oh, then why don't you do it yourself? After all, she is your responsibility. I know that if I were responsible for a lost sheep, I wouldn't hand off my responsibilities to someone else.
Fine, then give her to me.
Oh, don't worry yourself. Simply accept the help. No need of being proud and acting above one's station, is there, Miss Green?
It takes everything in her not to remind him it's Regent Green, but she just kind of smiles and gives him leave, but keeps so close. If he puts the foot out of line, he might get shanked.
You mean like he's already done? There is a cost to doing business, no matter what that business is. And the business of magic and the business of the Chantry is not above those costs being paid on a daily or nightly basis. One of those, of course, being respect is respect due. Achieving a certain circle of mystery, a certain degree of mystery, has of its own standing a certain amount of inherent demanded and commanded respect. Unless, of course, you, being the person who did not offer that commanded and demanded respect, have it within you to assure the other can't prosecute that lapse in judgment. And allowing such lapses in judgment to go unmeted, you are in fact adding veracity to you didn't deserve those honors to begin with. Because while closed mouths don't get fed, it is the empty can that rattles the loudest. And as such, in the same similar manner of the empty can sounding the most annoying of rackets, Father Canty, the moment that he looks at you and smiles softly and knowingly, as only a father of certain faiths might, knowing that in your heart is a sinner. You are, in fact, a sinner, and you will, in fact, do wrong and must, of course, do penance. Perhaps you should find something to divest yourself of the beast that crawls all over your skin. You can see it in your eyes, an enmity, a hate. Like so many others fall into their own small feelings. If you would be so kind, I understand that there is a certain parcel of delivered bagged blood you might partake of in the upper library. I will tend to this lost sheep, and you busy yourself with other things far more important to you, Miss Green.
Okay, that is the second time you have referred to me as Miss Green, and I'm sure someone as aged as you are would remember that I am a regent in this channel.
Oh, forgive me. Do forgive me. It was a small oversight. In this day and age of so many people unable to know themselves, it is quite often that we can only go based on what we see. And you are of the feminine persuasion, so forgive me. Would you prefer they?
I would prefer regent, as is my title. I know I'm not a little boy for you to push around, so I may be little.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was no Blair. I wasn't aware that you were the regent of this particular chantry. Forgive my overstep. There were ways things were done. This new methodology of regent simply being a rung upon the ladder is very much against standard protocol. But I understand. Hestia. Do you mind me calling you Hestia? I'm Arden. I'm recently arrived from Detroit. And then you all both feel that where the wards outside of the building first alert and then act. There are guests arriving at the chantry. Uninvited guests arriving at the chantry.
Before we get to that, does she know that if he were to go missing somehow, fingers would definitely be pointed in her direction, I'm guessing.
There's but one way to find out.
I love how there's this undercurrent throughout this so far. It's very much just Hestia killing everyone with more title or power than her to prove that they do not, in fact, have more title or power than her.
Ambition is a bitch.
Yeah.
That's the thing, though. He's not above her in the structure of the chantry. He's a newbie and considered just a magister, so it's still her having title over him, but he's being an asshole. So she's, no.
Okay, well then, so long as he doesn't have a powerful backer, yeah, just kill him.
I really think this would be best served me doing this myself, and she will stick her hands under Anon and take her into her arms, and then feeling the alarm, you might want to go check on that.
Oh, of course. After all, it is the most capable person who should greet any guest. I will return shortly.
Wants to trip him. She's not going to outwardly hurt him, but she sticks her foot out.
Fine,
Oh, Hestia, the petty little bitch.
I can't verbally break your composure. Fuck you then. I'll physically do it.
So guys, go ahead and roll your dexterity and brawl. Of course, if you score less than 2, you will in fact stumble as well.
Brawl. The skill I should put points in.
He keeps her footing and watches him faceplant.
Not quite faceplant, but he definitely stumbles. Oh, don't worry about that. You're forgiven for your clumsiness.
This bitch.
The look on his face as he says it. Here's the thing. There's a certain gift of gab that comes from naturally from doing and engaging in constant combat for your position. It's one of the many, primary lessons for most Tremere. The constant wheedling and needling of competitors as you all climb the rung, reaching for that brass ring. The look, however, the very much down the nose, very much looking down upon an unruly child, a cur to be beaten in the street and left for dead, some mongrel by the side of the road. Again, he was embraced in a slightly different time, at a slightly different age. The hardening of his heart and Antisocial behaviors that come with age had already begun to set in. Again, he lived a very hard life and had a very hard death. The demure fencing of the Tremere only furthering that distaste for lesser individuals, such as the very feminine and small Hestia. That look on his face steals that image of all the many times that she was ostracized through her sex, her age, race, her wealth, and her own demons over the course of her life, proving that she deserved to be someplace, proving that she needed to exist in some place, or that she should have the opportunity to carve out a space for herself. Seeing his face, his patrician, wizened with age face, look down its nose upon her, as all of those moments, every instance of ridicule to her face, within earshot, him looking down on her is very much her standing on the steps University of at its original building at the Circle Campus Science Department, and her ID not letting her in. And it's very much that moment when the tears began to well up behind her very large bottle glasses at that time, as she kept trying to swipe her card so that she could get into the building. This back during when the ID cards contained that very real magnetic code that was not something that could be digitally installed. It had to be printed and made, and her picture had to be affixed and it had to be sealed, and it was at least a 2 to 3 day process to have that done on premises, and it would cost easily $15 for a replacement ID. Why wasn't she allowed in to where she needed to be? Why were they keeping her out yet again? Because as she looked at the back of her ID card, that magnetic strip, unlike every other one that was properly charged, was just a marker beneath lamination. Just a streak of black ink beneath a laminated surface. And he says, when I return, hopefully you'll be able to not need my assistance in reviving your... I'll be right back. Begins turning and heading towards the upper floors. The weight of power has its own feel. There's a certain musicality to it. It's a strident, dirgy sort of thing. It is pitched too high and vibrates too low all at once. It is jangling to the nerves, especially being when it's directed at you. When you feel the weight of someone powerful with their eyes on you, there's something done that might have displeased them, that might affect where and who you will be afterwards. It is an uncomfortable feeling. And that's what trills along the skin as you all make your way to that door. Seconds later, as you all prepare to ring the doorbell, which is a strange feature on the side of a library, but yet there is one, perhaps for night deliveries or what have you. Those of you in the know, i.e. you, Miriam, know that that is in fact not just what this building is. It is the greater Chicago Chantry. It is the center of the Tremere power here in Chicago. And ever since the death of the former Regent Nikolai, it hasn't quite been as esteemed as it once was. And they've been fighting and clawing, stealing bits of power every step of the way until now they actually have not only a regent Dusable, but they also have a primogen Dusable. They have a seat at the table. And that seat at the table came because of the actions of the shelter. Because of their happenings and the fallout of what they did during the initial inaugural Empyrean party and the leeway that it opened when the shelter, according to rumor, killed Primogen Newberry, and their success at surviving opened the doorway for the Tremere to seize and hold on to another bit of power, to reclaim their position at the adults' table. So as the door swings open and a Catholic friar of sorts, his vestments and collar in place, his patricians seeming old and wizened, the sort of father that, you gotta call me father. His voice coming out in a very gravelly, New England-esque accent. Good evening, children. How can I help you?
Miriam will smile at him. Why, good evening. I am so sorry to intrude. But we are looking for a colleague of ours that hasn't been seen in a couple of days. I thought she might be here. One Ms. Green.
Wait, is this that other place you were talking about?
I see. Miss Green. We do have several lesser members here. Why don't you come in? We might be able to find her, if she's of note. And you are?
I am Ms. Ashton.
Oh.
The Ms. Green I'm looking for is about yay high.
Oh.
Give other descriptions.
Oh, I see. Miss Green. Miss Ashton, I can find her for you. I'm sure, with a certain sort of person. Is embroiled in a small minor issue. Merely the exsanguination of another kindred's assistant. Nothing too worrisome, of course. It is one of her own kind. And is this gentleman, and he looks at Aaron's tan skin, his wild, unkept beard, his height. Oh, I see. You brought your own security.
Sometimes it's necessary.
Oh, well, this is not a place for such individuals. Would you be so kind as to go back to your vehicle and remove any of your armaments?
He just kind of works his head a little bit.
Miriam will just nod.
Miriam, where exactly are we?
Oh, yes, I forget. Most of the rank and file, non-important members wouldn't quite understand. You are in the Elysium for the Tremere. You are in a place of power, and you are clearly out of your league. Perhaps you should remain outside where it's safer for someone of such middling intellect.
Just kind of looks back to him for a moment, looks to Miriam again. Is he somebody that I need to care about?
Yes, I am Magister Canty. And you are?
I think you'll figure that out eventually.
No, I don't think I will. I don't usually speak to the help.
Miriam,
I'd
is
be
he someone
quite
of
hip enough.
import?
Important enough to not damage.
All right.
Oh,
And she will.
it is nice to see that even in this day and age, there's some women are able to tolerate such brusque men. I'm sorry you have to put up with that. Once your thug is removed, I escort you to our waiting area, and you can find a moment to while away while I search for this lesser entity that you're looking for. Or maybe news of her. I hope to find something worthwhile. Perhaps she is not quite as far gone as her appearance would seem.
Perhaps. She is important to the people she cares for, though.
That is a shame. There's no judging taste. Now the question is, while he's stalling and holding the door open, does Theo enter? Or does he wait outside with Aaron, who stepped back outside?
He enters.
It never once said I stepped back, sir.
Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your resolve plus obfuscate? Roll as high as you possibly can.
Ooh, resolve and obfuscate. This gonna be tight. Okay. Did we ever get a chance to stop for food?
I didn't stop for food.
Damn it.
Indubitably. Very, 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 very nice. Let's see what that's up to, mate.
Uh-oh. Ruh-roh, Raggy. You know you do have some willpower to burn.
Wait, that's not a success?
No, it's opposed, I believe.
Okay, well, I'll re-roll success.
You don't have to, you know. Oh, okay.
Is someone getting zotted?
What the fuck is this?
Perhaps.
You don't know what a zot is?
I have Alright, so imagine
Like
a
in
man
a comic
living
book?
No. Alright, once again. Imagine a man who's living under a rock. Now imagine the guy that lives in his basement. That's me.
No, that's actually me.
No, you're the lurker who's peeking through the kitchen window as the people are in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay.
I just want a cup. I just want a little cup of sugar. Would you give me a cup of sugar?
There is an immediate electrical jolt. Luckily, you're dead, so it feels very much akin to a tickle. A small little tremor as you step across the threshold and waver into existence for a split fraction of a second. With your obfuscate raise, you don't see your limbs. You don't see you. No one sees you. But for a split, wavering second, you saw you. And you're not sure how, but the electricity passed through you.
Tremere.
My god.
Messing
this man
up
just-
everything.
And while that conversations are happening upstairs, you're holding the body of Anand, your Mali, the woman you saved, kindred you saved, from being divested of her immortality.
I think Hess would go into she's going to go to the library to look for the blood that was promised there. And if it's there, she's going to use it to drink herself and give Anand back some of what was taken to bring her out of torpor. The smart way, she's not going to put her wrist in Anand's mouth.
So, literally, as Arden is speaking with Miriam and motioning gently forward so that she can get her to one of the waiting rooms, and Theo crosses the threshold, and Aaron, who has decided to not go back to the car, who didn't say he was going back to the car, is standing in the doorway with the doorway open. Hestia walks up the stairs and heading towards the library with Anand in her arms. You all clearly see her right over Arden Magister Canty's shoulder, carrying the corpse of a kindred.
Oh. Aaron will enter the room.
How fortuitous.
Oh, I see.
Like explode.
Well, as you see, she is quite busy. I will get you all situated and have her meet you somewhere.
He hears that. Ignore him. He's nothing. I am Regent here. Pass.
Well,
You are the lady.
Hestia, these individuals aren't
That is the
expected.
third time tonight you have called me Hestia or anything other than Regent, and I am getting tired of it.
Oh, but you are to call me Arden. I assume that you didn't have a problem with it.
You want me to
Feels
do
like
something about it?
Anger at him.
Please, we don't need any more violence. We've had plenty the last couple of days.
Oh, you all are Miss Green's friends, so I assume that the violence is to be expected. But if she states that you all are perfectly well to be unaccompanied by accountable Tremere here in the Central Chantry, of course that falls on her head to be responsible for your actions herein. I'll leave you to it. Regent Hestia.
Miriam will offer him a very small bow. Your hospitality is appreciated.
Oh, no, not my hospitality, though I would, of course, love to extend the offer. I will not be responsible for your hospitality, and your accounting herein solely on the head of Hestia. Miss Regent Hestia will be responsible for all of your security while you're here.
Okay.
Hestia, your friends?
Just kind of rubbing the ridge of his nose and that very stressed gesture. Just, God, I fucking hate the Tremere.
Does he actually say it out loud?
Yeah, it's kind of muttered under his breath.
Oh no! Oh no!
Theo walks closer to Hestia, right behind her. Because whatever's gonna happen, he don't want to be in that blast radius.
Miriam will look at Aaron. My dear, unclench your jaw.
Excuse me?
She's offering you the understanding of at least while in the presence of your betters, respecting them. It is clearly a lesson you have not learned in your small time being dead. But you are a member of Hestia's circle of associates, so a less than social understanding and behavior is to be expected. After all, as the chief financial operational officer for that scam of a coterie called the Shelter, your poor behavior and lack of respect is to be expected.
I'm not normally someone who engages in this kind of bullshit. And I'm not normally someone who has to put up with your kind of bullshit. So how about you just finish walking away and hope that I never see you when you've left this building?
I'm sorry, I don't speak guttural. Would you use actual English? Was that a threat?
I don't think it was. No, I think it's more of an offer. Negotiation, as it were. I would like you to stop either of us from having to deal with either of us into the future.
Miriam will
I'm just here
step
for her.
between them.
And she's
Again,
doing so just,
he is
I'm-
nothing. Mind. Do pay him no mind. He's trying to get you to do something that would be regretful on all of us. As it is, I'm going to make sure that DuSable has been made aware of how he behaves with guests. And
Of
she heads
course.
upstairs.
Very welcoming.
He's just gonna follow
Follows.
after her with the. Yeah, Theo. We don't even fucking know Theo's here. But Aaron's just gonna give a slight nod to Hestia and start walking after her.
Do mind where you step. There are certain not for guest areas. Enjoy Hestia's hospitality.
True to her word, the next acolyte she sees, she is going to quickly inform them that they need to pass the message on to DuSable for her, letting him know what just transpired.
Miss Green, Miss Green, Magister Green, I would love to. However, Regent DuSable instructed that upon your resurrecting for the evening, that you are to meet him at the Harold Washington Library. Immediately.
Okay, fine, I will tell him myself. As soon as
And on that note, in consideration of the various Elysiums around the city, in consideration of all the places where one might meet a member of the Primogen, Harold Washington Library has ghosts. The last time Hestia and Miriam were there was the sanguination of not one but two kindred existence. The instance before that was the decimation of the wolf pack. The instance before that was the death of the wolf pack member Lulu, who was also one of the hounds. The instance before that was the judgment against the Shelter that placed a blood hunt on all of their heads. The instance before that, they watched their former member Clyde cease to be. Harold Washington Library cultural center. It is one of the places where the Primogen passes down and doles out punitive actions against kindred, where they decide together as a body politic, and they carry out typically the torture, interrogation, and or execution of kindred. It's one of the few Elysiums in the entirety of the city where kindred may actually be put to death.
Oh, fun.
And with that being on Hestia and Miriam's understanding and their memories assailing them, I'd like to thank you all for a lovely episode, and I'll see you guys next time.
That motherfucker better never step out of this building. I'm just saying. He might even be going to another Elysium. Doesn't fucking matter. I'm getting him.
But are you, though?
No, because I have to struggle against the character I've designed. And the character I've designed wouldn't waste time on a piece of shit.
You say that. But is that really true?
Stop it, you gaslighting bastard.
But I'm not gaslighting, I'm just asking.
You contrarian. Look,
Trust me.
unless it served the mission.
He's on Hess's shit list now, so we know how that goes. He will disappear at some point.
The fucking Primogen wasn't on your shit list and they disappeared. I think it's just proximity, Hess.
I mean,
He doesn't have a
let's put it this
title,
way.
so
Is it- Is it he's just disappearing, or is it that he's yummy?
All I know is, like, we just gotta survive this upcoming, fucking trial. Deal with the bats. Deal with the bitch that made the bats and her annoying henchman. And then all will be well in the